A newborn baby left in a crowded market in China. Beside her a note, "If fate allows, meet us again on the broken bridge in 10 or 20 years." Her parents walked away in tears, carrying nothing but guilt and hope. 22 years later, on Chinese Valentine's Day, a young American woman steps onto that very bridge, and across the span, a couple runs toward her, sobbing. Could it be the miracle they've been waiting for? A child lost to circumstance. China in the mid-1990s was a country in transition, racing toward prosperity, but burdened by the strict one-child policy. For families like Xu Lida and Qian Fengxiang, life was already hard. They were migrant workers in Hangzhou, scraping together a living and dreaming of stability, while fearing the law that shaped millions of lives. They already had a daughter, Xiaochen, a bright little 3-year-old. But when Qian became pregnant again, joy turned to dread. A second child could mean forced abortion, fines, or ruin. Still, Qian carried the pregnancy in secret, hiding with Xiaochen on a houseboat in Suzhou while Xu tried to plan their future. 6 weeks later, at dawn, Qian gave birth on that boat. There was no hospital, just the rocking water and Xu, only 24, cutting the cord with boiled scissors. For a terrifying moment, the placenta wouldn't drop. Qian nearly died, but a sympathetic doctor quietly saved her, risking punishment by not reporting the forbidden birth. The baby, named Jingji, was perfect. Tiny fingers curled around her father's hand. For days they dared to dream they might keep her. But reality returned. Stories of raids and forced sterilizations haunted them. Fear spread beyond themselves to their elder daughter. On the 5th morning, Xu carried Jingji to a market in Suzhou. He laid her gently where someone would find her and placed beside her a note written in ink, soaked with grief but filled with hope. Our daughter, Jingji, was born at 10 a.m. on the 24th day of the 7th month of the lunar calendar, 1995. We have been forced by poverty and the affairs of the world to abandon her. Oh, pity the hearts of fathers and mothers. Thank you for saving her. If fate allows, let us meet again on the broken bridge in Hangzhou on the morning of the Qixi festival in 10 or 20 years. It was not just farewell, it was a prayer. Jingji was taken to the Suzhou Children's Welfare Institute. In 1996, an American couple from Michigan, Ken and Ruth Poehler, adopted her. They renamed her Catherine Sue Poehler, or Catty. Back in China, Xu and Qian lived on, but the wound remained. Each Qixi festival, they remembered the promise. They ran a second-hand appliance shop, never resting except during New Year. Their eldest daughter grew, but for them, there was always a missing piece. When Kati turned 10, Xu and Qian went to the broken bridge for the first time. They carried a sign with her name, Jingji, and stood for hours, searching every face. By afternoon, exhausted and empty-handed, they went home in tears. They returned year after year, waiting for a miracle, while halfway across the world, their daughter was growing up loved and safe, unaware of the promise written beside her as a baby, a life between two worlds. While Xu and Qian carried silence and longing, little Jingji, now Kati, grew up in a very different world. Her adoptive parents, Ken and Ruth, were a warm, religious couple in Hudsonville, Michigan, a town where neighbors knew each other and children roamed safely. Already parents to 2 boys, they longed for a daughter. When they held baby Catty in 1996, she was a bundle of promise, her future far beyond what her birth parents could imagine. Ken still remembers the note. A translator had read it aloud, her voice trembling. Ken and Ruth tucked it away, deciding Catty would learn about it only when she was older, perhaps 18. Until then, she would simply grow as their daughter, unburdened by grief she could not yet understand. Hudsonville was blonde hair and blue eyes. Catty stood out, the only Chinese girl in her school but never felt out of place. Her family and friends loved her. She excelled in school, played viola and piano, and ran soccer fields with her brothers. Her childhood, she later said, was simply solid and good. Her parents raised her with faith and responsibility. She worked odd jobs, even at a greenhouse, to earn extra money. For her American family, it built character. But for Qian, hearing this years later, it was unbearable. My Xiaochen has never had to wash a single bowl. To her, such work meant suffering. Meanwhile, Xu and Qian kept their vigil. Each Qixi festival, they returned to the Bridge of Legend, where the cowherd and weaver girl met once a year, believing fate might return their family. In 2005, when Kati was 10, they brought a sign with her name. They stood from morning until afternoon, hearts leaping at each girl who passed, only to break again. Finally, dehydrated and devastated, they left. What they didn't know was that halfway across the world, Ken and Ruth had also remembered the 10-year mark. They quietly arranged for a friend, Annie Wu, to go to the bridge. By cruel fate, she arrived just minutes after Xu and Qian had gone. Yet destiny left a trace. A TV crew filming that day captured Xu holding the sign. The image aired nationwide. Xu and Qian later saw it and knew their story had touched the world. Through Wu, they received photos and a letter from the Polars. For the first time, they knew their daughter was alive and loved, but joy quickly turned to sorrow. The Polars decided to cut off further contact, fearing it would confuse Kati. Xu and Qian were left heartbroken once more, clutching a few photos and waiting for another chance. Years blurred with work and longing. Their shop provided a modest life. Their eldest daughter grew, but their second remained a ghost. Every Qixi they returned to the bridge, hope undimmed. Meanwhile, Kati grew into a teenager preparing for college, unaware that her birth parents still stood by the West Lake, waiting. But fate was quietly at work, pulling threads together, preparing to keep the promise, the miracle of reunion. For more than 20 years, Xu and Qian waited. Every festival, they walked the bridge. Every time, they left empty-handed, yet hope never left. Enter Chang Changfu, a Chinese-American documentary filmmaker. He heard about the couple returning each year with a sign, searching for the daughter lost to the one-child policy. Their devotion gripped him. He began to investigate. He had only fragments: a typed letter from the Polars, a mention of Michigan, adoption from Suzhou, a child with rheumatoid arthritis. It wasn't much, but in the age of the internet, even scraps could open doors. On an adoption forum, he found a post by a man named Ken Polar, mentioning his daughter's knee problems. The detail matched perfectly. Comparing photos confirmed it. This was the family. Ken and Ruth were cautious. They feared that contact would confuse Kati or divide her loyalties. For years, they resisted. But when Kati turned 21, preparing to study in Spain, she began asking questions. Where had she really come from? What did it mean to be Chinese and American? Her mother finally revealed the truth. We know who your biological parents are. The revelation stunned Kati. She felt shock, anger, even betrayal, not from malice, but because such a part of her life had been hidden. After days of processing, longing rose. She wanted to meet the people who had written that note, who had waited 20 years. She reached out to Chang, agreeing not only to connect but also to let the reunion be filmed. The plan was simple: meet on the broken bridge during the Qixi festival, just as the note had promised, but emotions complicated things. Xu and Qian, hearing news too soon, rushed to Suzhou. Overwhelmed, Kati wasn't ready. The first attempt failed, leaving her birth parents devastated once more. Then, on the morning of the festival, destiny finally kept its word. The cameras rolled, the bridge bustled, and there she was, Kati, their Jingji, standing on the very spot they had prayed over for 2 decades. Xu and Qian saw her first. They ran. Tears streamed down their faces. Qian sobbed uncontrollably, body shaking from years of grief. Xu cried openly as he embraced his daughter. For Kati, it was overwhelming. Strangers, yet not strangers, holding her as if they had always known her. The note, the bridge, the festival, everything aligned. Kati spent 2 days with her birth family in their small flat in Hangzhou. She shared a room with her sister Xiao Chen, who spoke little English but welcomed her warmly. Her parents fussed over her, urging her to eat, scolding her for being too thin, showering her with care withheld for 22 years. She met her grandmother, the woman who had been on the boat at her birth. Now frail and speechless after a stroke, the grandmother still clasped her granddaughter's hand. For the family, it was sacred. 3 generations reunited. For Kati, it was both beautiful and confusing. I want some sort of relationship. I want to see them again. But the big question is, what are they to me? I don't even know what to call them. Shu and Qian longed for her to say mama and baba, but she couldn't. The gap was too wide, the language too high a barrier. Yet even without words, the bond was clear. After 22 years, the promise on the broken bridge was fulfilled. Love stronger than distance. The reunion was not an ending, but a beginning. Because what does it mean to be family when time and distance have built walls? How do you reconcile 2 lives never meant to cross again? For Shu and Qian, seeing their daughter alive and happy was a miracle. For decades they carried guilt, fearing she had suffered. To finally hold her was proof that love had protected her when they could not. Yet the ache remained. She was here, but not wholly theirs. As Qian whispered, "Now that we have met her, we miss her even more." For Kati, the reunion was both gift and storm. She had grown up American, with loving parents and brothers, yet on that bridge she felt the weight of another identity. It was joyful, confusing, overwhelming. She didn't know what to call them. Strangers, parents, or something in between. For Ken and Ruth, the adoptive parents who raised her, it was complex too. They had given her love and faith, shielding her from a painful past. Now, they had to trust she could hold both truths, that she belonged to them and also to the ones who had written that note. In the end, this is not about perfect resolutions. It is about the endurance of love, a mother's tears, a father's promise, an adoptive family's care, a daughter's searching heart. The broken bridge in Hangzhou is not actually broken. And perhaps that is the lesson. Even when life separates us, love builds bridges back. So if you ever doubt that miracles happen, remember this: a note beside a baby became a promise written into destiny. 22 years later, on a bridge filled with legend, that promise was kept. Because sometimes love is stronger than law, stronger than fear, stronger than time itself.